Perfect. We are rolling, sir. This is Justin Severson. I am with Bryan Miller, and I'm going to read this because I've only done this podcast one time. Welcome to Acme's Funniest Person podcast. We talk about the amateur contest that happens at Acme each and every year. It's been going on for how many years, Bryan?
I think 34?
34 years and counting, including this year where there's already been the contest, hot and heavy here in the middle of the summer here. Finals will be in...
Well, the finals will be the September, I believe, the 7th or 8th. It's the first Wednesday after the holiday. The semifinals will be my headlining week, which is the last couple of days of August, first couple of days of September. So come on out.
Perfect. So here we are. So if people are listening or watching this, they've been following along, I think, with you hosting a bunch of these. So quickly, just for the one person that's tuning in to see you being interviewed, what have you been doing with this podcast?
This was Lewis's idea. It's an interesting idea. I like it. We interview people who've done the contest. A lot of people think it's like contest winners. People have said, "Oh, I'd like to be on the podcast, but I didn't win." Well, you don't have to win the contest. There's only been 30-something winners, right? We talked to people who've done it. A lot of the most successful people did the Acme Funniest Person contest when they started and did not do well, and went on to do great. And in fact, most of our interviewees did not win. Tommy Ryman, Nate Abshire, me. Many examples of people who didn't win. Only a few examples of people who won.
Yes, we're going to get into all of that. I was briefly telling you before we started recording. I've been I've been viewing them on YouTube, the ones that you did, and learning new things about some of these. I'll admit, some of these people you had on, Brooks Robinson.
Oh yeah,
I've never met.
One of the funniest guys I've ever seen.
I've been doing this I've been doing No Laugh Track podcast for Acme since 2012. Somebody like him. Isn't it strange? I've never met. We've never crossed paths.
Yeah, he probably quit right around 2012.
Yeah, isn't that
Brooks
wild?
is like I can only think of like 1.5 comics. Brooks is one of them who quit comedy that the people actually miss. People always think if you quit, everyone will miss you, and then like 2 weeks later, they're like, "Oh, there's some new open micers here. Who are you again?" Like the business moves fast.
Isn't that hilarious?
But everybody who's seen Brooks is like, I would wish Brooks still did stand up.
I mean, I've only heard the stories for years and years
Such
and years.
a funny guy. He's still around. He's not dead. I saw him.
Rest in peace. No,
I saw him literally a few weeks ago. He's doing quite well. He's very funny off stage too, but that's for me to know.
So then there's people like Andy, who won last year's contest.
Andy won?
Andy.
Andy Duong. I was thinking of Andy Erickson. I was like, no, that was a long time ago. Yeah, Andy Duong.
Andy Duong, yes. Yeah. Another person that I've never met, but I was a judge here in the contest last year, so I sort of had a hand in him. A very small, 1/12. 1/12 of a chance of a.
He and Lahiru were close. I think we compared our scores and we had almost identical scores. And they were both very close.
Yeah. Which is tons of fun. So anyway, I got to learn a whole bunch about him. He's watching you talk to him, and now we're going to see if people can learn some stuff about Bryan Miller. So, what year did you do the contest?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know, you didn't grow up here.
No.
How long had you been in the Twin Cities in 2009?
Almost exactly a year by the time the finals rolled around. So I moved here in 2008 during the week of the Republican National Convention because I was moving up here anyway. They had the RNC when the Sarah Palin got announced. So we moved up our move because I got paid by a newspaper to cover the RNC. So I covered the RNC for a week, got tear gassed a few times, cop stood on my neck, and then I got a horse ridden into me as well. A cop rode a horse into me. That was exciting. They were, I don't know if you know this, Justin. They were up to some shenanigans even before the recent shenanigans. So I basically got the crap beat out of me by the cops for like a week covering the riots and the protests outside of the RNC, and then I started stand-up like as soon as that was over, I was like back over here starting, and I came to Acme the first Monday at the time after the RNC, and I saw that there was a contest, and I was like, oh, sweet, I'll enter this amateur contest, I'm brand new, and then I found out, these finals are next week, it's done. So
you missed the deadline.
I was bummed, but then also it worked out great, I think, because it gave me, I think, about the perfect length of time, which was like, all right, I'm going to work really hard all year, and then that's going to be my year one goal. Like, the whole first year of comedy, the contest was the thing I had kind of the goal I was moving toward.
To compete
win.
again, to win.
To win. To compete in it and also to win. But, I mean, in the first year, it's not like, unless you're delusional, you're like, I'm going to get on Jimmy Fallon or whatever. You know, at the time it was Jay Leno. I'm going to get on the show or whatever. You're just trying to get stage time. So they gave me a really tangible goal, which is like I got to build, obviously enough jokes in general, but I got to build a really, really good 3. So I was always thinking about what that 3 would be all year long.
What were you? Had you done any stand-up?
I did stand-up like twice in Chicago when I lived there when I was like 21.
What was that scenario?
I always wanted to try stand-up, but I was getting toward the end of college, and as soon as I turned 21, I could finally go out to these places that had mics and shows and stuff. And I went and watched a few, and it was like when Kumail just started, and Pete Holmes and those guys were all like brand new. At the time, I know Kumail was like the king of the open micers. He was like everybody's favorite new guy, but like he wasn't getting paid. He was just an open micer.
Wow.
And so I watched those guys a lot, and I did a couple sets, and it was kind of overwhelming. I was bad. Ooh, I was bad. I remember so clearly the first time I got off stage, it was at this place called Cherry Red in Chicago, which was a bar right by the Cubby Bear. I think the Cubby Bear owned it, but it was right in Wrigleyville. And this guy, Steve O'Harvey, who has since passed on, was running the mic, and I don't remember anything about the set. I know I swore a lot. And I think I probably talked like Chris Rock because he was my favorite comic at the time, which is not a good look for someone like me. And I just remember Steve O'Harvey, I did my set, I was all nervous, and I didn't get any laughs, and I gave him back the mic. I'm done with my 3 minutes or whatever. And his exact words were, "Boy, that guy wanted to be on stage." So I think I must have come up with just like the most manic, nervous energy.
You've always had a lot. I mean, since I've met you, energy. You're known for energy.
Yeah, but like I was so nervous. I was 21, and so I don't know how these young kids have any stage presence, like Aiden McCluskey. I don't know how they do it. I had none. So I didn't really do comedy for a while. I graduated, became a newspaper editor. Always wanted to do it, but I was living in a small town. I did like sets, if you want to call it, between my buddies' band set breaks a few times.
How did that go?
Poorly.
Had to have.
Yeah, because I mean, you mentioned you're like at an outdoor beer garden. It's like 11 o'clock. The bluegrass band's done for 30 minutes, and then they're like, "Hey, our friend's gonna come tell jokes while we go get beers, and we'll be back."
Yeah,
for the second set.
Everybody's using the bathroom then, or
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah,
it was rough. But I could just tell I wanted to do it, even though it was never going well, and it was always rough. And so I kind of just made this. I remember talking to my wife not my wife at the time. She's still my wife. But at the time saying like, well, we live a couple hours from St. Louis, a few hours from Chicago. Maybe I could like rent a room in St. Louis and commute and like do sets on the weekends, just trying to some way to get into stand up. And then we were looking to move anyway. And so I said, well, okay, we're just going to move somewhere where I can do stand up. We wanted to move to a city. And then through a variety of ways, one of which was Mark Poulos, old. I mean, he's not old. I mean, he is older than me, so he's old. But he's been doing comedy here for a long time. Still does.
Another name I know and have never met.
Yeah, Poulos is a great dude. And he's been doing comedy, I think, since probably the late 90s, early 2000s. Poulos was doing a Yoder gig that I used to go watch, a monthly Yoder gig at a place called Muggsy McGuire's, which was run by this crazy German guy who was obsessed with racehorses, but that's a whole other thing. And I saw Poulos, and he was really funny, and I was talking to him afterwards. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about trying stand-up. And he's like, well, you should move to Minneapolis. They got a great scene. They got this club, Acme. And my wife's parents live here. So then I was like, okay, well, your parents live in a town that has a comedy club that everyone says is great. Like, sure, let's pick that city.
That's right. So your wife's parents lived here. She's not from here.
Yeah, she's from here. She went to high school here.
And you met her where?
In college at DePaul in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
But it was kind of like my theory was I want to go to Aw City with a scene, probably not New York or L.A. I knew enough at the time to be like, that'd be probably a tough start.
Sure.
So I went to some smaller cities, just, Denver, Portland, Seattle, and it sort of settled on Minneapolis. My argument being everyone says the club here is great, and if we move here, we only have to visit my parents. But if we move to Portland, we have to take 2 trips. We have to visit your parents and my parents. I'm like, we'll cut down on the trips. People say the club's great. And then, so came here. The first thing I did was come to Acme. Basically, I was like, I got to check this place out. Because I kind of...
How did you know about Acme?
I just heard about it. I mean, Poulos told me about it, and then I was early. I don't know if, God, this sounds weird. I think Google was around. I, web searched it or whatever. And then I was up here, I picked up a City Pages and, looked at all the listings, and I was like, yeah, this place seems like I remember Dwight Slade was working here when I came to visit my in-laws, and I'm a huge Bill Hicks fan, and so I knew all about Dwight. I'd never seen him live, but I knew all about him from. I was like, oh, my God, Dwight Slade is just, this club all week? I got to go see this. So I came and saw it and saw the club. And so my goal pretty much from the jump was, I mean, the real goal was to get hired at Acme. That was the number one goal. But I saw at the time my path to that being winning the contest, which, I've come to find out in years since that is, it don't hurt. It's not like a one-to-one path.
Yeah. Listening to you host this podcast and all your guests, one of the most fascinating things I learned is how many different reasons people did the podcast. Some, like you're saying, clearly did it because they wanted to get hired and work here.
Oh, yeah. Some people were like, I want to be a pro, and this is my entry point into the pros.
And others had no clue
Yeah.
what they were doing. I listened to the one with Brandy Brown.
Yeah.
And she was saying, like, I'd never been to a comedy club. I didn't know anyone. I had no mentor. I didn't know what you did. She just was just showing up for the contest.
Did the contest. She's like 5 years in a row, but then she would do the contest and did well, by the way. I mean, not every year, but like, I know she made the semis at least a couple times.
Yeah.
Maybe the finals another time before I did it with her, but she would just do the contest and be like, oh, that's cool. She was living elsewhere. She was going to college out east, too, so she wasn't around as much.
Sure.
But, yeah, some people are like, yeah, my friends signed me up, I mean, I think that's one of the interesting things about the contest is I can look at the list now, right? Because I really like Malcolm's been doing that, printing the list of all the contestants every week and they post it.
Yes.
And I really like reading that because I'll be like, oh, that guy's trying real hard. Oh, I see that girl out a lot,
Because you're at other open mics.
Yeah,
seeing
exactly.
People.
So I know the ones who are like, oh, these people are like, the contest is sort of part of their process. These aren't people who just popped in for the contest. This is on their radar.
But those people still exist yearly. That are just...
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a ton of the names I've I never heard of this person in my life.
It's, kind of a bucket list type of
Absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely.
Or drunkenly dared one night.
And you can kind of tell when you host, you get to see a lot of the contestants. By the semis, if people come out to my week, all the contest sets are going to be pretty decent at worst because they've gone through the first round. They've had to be in the top 25.
Yeah.
So all those people are going to have like some cohesive something, right? But in the first round, it's just anybody who signs up. It's like any true open mic, right? I used to run an open mic, and one girl's like, why don't you vet more of the content before we go up? And I was like, what do you vet the content? I never heard of these people before in my life. They showed up, they wrote their name on a piece of paper, and I said, here's your three, And that's what this is. It's the true, even at the open mic here, your first time, no one knows who they are. But after that, people do know who they are. And then if they get back up, people keep an eye on them. So even at the Acme open mic, it's an open mic, but it's pretty heavily curated for the most part. The contest in the first round, whatever those sets you're seeing, those people doing threes, is not curated. It is anything. And sometimes people get up and you just see them be like, oh, I didn't plan. I don't know. Or they freak out. Or famously, the one guy, after Brandon, the manager, was already like concerned that he seemed kooky, just took his shirt off and then chugged a lady's glass of wine really fast. He just panicked and started doing weird stuff.
Did he win his night?
No, he disqualified. Yeah, so I think it's fun to see that truly the whole range of like,
oh, God,
I don't even remember signing up. I think I must have got drunk at the open mic to, people who were, I assume there's still some people who were like me and my friends were, which is like, this is a really big deal.
This is everything to me right now.
And especially at the time, first off, there were fewer contests. Now there's more like general contests around town. But also, at the time when I did it, there really had been, of the last like 6 winners, like 5 of them had gotten hired. It wasn't a total coincidence. They won the contest because they were funny, and then they got hired because they were funny. But it did kind of give the kind of correlation versus causation kind of illusion that, in fact, no, they're just funny people who also got hired. Winning the contest didn't get them hired. But that pattern was like, we were very hung up on that pattern.
Oh, I bet.
Nate and Conroy and Gabe. And so Zach Coulter and Chris Knutz and Brandy Brown, eventually Brandy Brown, once she started coming back around. So then it was like, we got to do well in this contest.
The comedy carrot was hanging in front of you.
At the time at the open mic, I was getting some time. I would get up like once a month. I came every week. I never missed. I missed 1 week in the first like year and a half to see my family.
Well, you learned from that, I hope.
Yeah, but I would come every week, and I would get up probably about once a month after the first 3 or 4 months.
I hope people are really paying attention to that. In that, look where you are now, and look, you have to put that work in. You have to show up and not get time.
Yeah, and
it's
that's
real.
true.
It really happens.
That's true. I mean, this is a very high level comedy club. That's true of almost all of them. Like honestly, the process at the Denver Comedy Works is like, actually, I think it's madness. It's so much more strictured and than here. And then like the Comedy Store, the Comedy Cellar, the Improv, all those the coastal clubs, like you got to get past. And the way you get past is you get to do a couple sets and they keep an eye on you, but you've got to have been around so much. So like, at the bigger level stuff, like a lot of it is like hanging out and keeping an eye out, learning the ropes for a while.
I quickly looked at the some of the rules for the Comedy on State Street Funniest Person contest.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a participant in their open mic at least 3 times.
I did not know that. That's very interesting.
Mhm.
I've judged that contest a couple times. Great club, Comedy on State. Bring me back, please, Eve and Anna. Love that club, and I judged their contest a couple years, but I was there by the time it was the finals, so it was all polished. Now, and the difference there, I'm fairly certain in Madison, there's like here you have to be a true amateur, it can't have been paid. There, you just can't have won that contest before.
Okay.
So it's really a constant. Like you might see the same 3 finalists the next year who didn't
bet.
win because
Very likely.
it's the top folks who are kind of jockeying for it. Whereas here, you kind of get your little time to try. You get your year, maybe 2, maybe 3 if you're like really moving slow through the system. But then you're done with the Acme contests. Now you must move on.
So let's talk about that for a minute. In that people, some people really have to make a decision, and I know that you did.
Yeah.
Like turning down money to stay an amateur.
Very little, very little.
Millions of dollars opening for no.
No, literally, it was. I just didn't take $50 from Ken Reed at the Joke Joint a couple of times because I would MC the whole month there, and the experience was great. Ken was a great dude. Joke Joint was a great club, and I really liked learning from them. And so I was like, well, I'll do the month. I can't take this $50. And Ken would be like, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And I was like, look, I don't want to. It's not worth $50. If you give me $10,000, maybe I'll lie for $10,000. But it's not worth $50. So I didn't. I had very little. The real decision was after I lost in my round. There was like a hot minute where I was like, ooh, I'm gonna get him next year. But it was like, ooh, well, if I do that, I got to stay amateur. And then it kind of felt like, I was like, am I just going to be like the kid who got left back in 3rd grade and so he's the best basketball player on the team? We were like, yeah, I'm like too tall now, like
this dude has pubes. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I don't know. I don't want to be that guy. And then I actually, it was a weighing the, pros and cons. But and then my year was the first year in a while that the winner nor the second contestant got hired. Nor the third, actually for a while, none of us actually did. So then I was like, oof. So I'm not seeing this hiring that I thought was going to happen. I'm actually finally getting some offers to MC for people.
Interesting.
And I kind of figured, not just for the money, but for the experience. Because I thought, well, I can still get hired here. That was kind of the decision I made, was like, if you would have told me my only path to getting hired was doing the contest again, I would have sucked it up for 1 more year. It would have been worth the year investment. But I was like, I think I got a shot anyway. And I think I decided I'd have a better shot if I did a lot more comedy and just got better and then just hope to like shine at the open mic.
Sure.
Which is kind of ultimately what happened, because I did after the contest start getting much more regular time here. That was the really encouraging thing, was I went from being like a 3-minute guy once a month to like the 3-minute guy, sometimes a 5-minute guy, like kind of every other weekish. It got fairly regular, and then I'd go up to 7 and back to 5, and so I was like, oh, okay, I'm making progress. So like I should just focus on the stage part of the progress and not try to like the galaxy brain the rules of this contest to find some loophole into the I don't know. I don't think it would have helped.
I listened back to the one you did with Mary Mack and Tim Harmston, and Tim talked on there about it didn't lead to him getting immediate stage time.
No.
Which is very interesting.
It's very interesting, yeah. And that was only a few years before me, but that was with a different. That was when a different booker on the open mic, different manager was running the open mic at the time. So I don't know. Obviously, Tim got hired. They obviously liked him. So I don't know if that process was different. I know when I was here, Derek was the manager, And so I was just sort of mostly familiar with the way Derek ran stuff.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
as best I recall, for most of the time that Derek was making the list, if people did the finals and did pretty well in the finals, you would notice them get more time. They would bump them into the like semi-regular,
Sure.
at least for a little while, if they keep writing new jokes.
Sure. What's your first memory of being funny?
You mean like on stage?
No, before that, before stage. Like you know, if you're having trouble
That's a
coming
good
up with some of
question.
that, just like why did you think you were could be a comedian?
People always told me I was going to be a lawyer. My grandma's friend who ran the hamburger stand at the country. I say country club like I'm from the country. It was a country club. Emphasis on the country. There was a golf course and a pool. It was cool, but like we're not talking. It was an elite membership or anything like that. It was my grandma's friends, and my grandma's a very lovely lady, Mary Lou, always said, "You talk so much and you talk so fast, you're bound to be a lawyer." And so I got a lot of that. I was actually voted in high school. You know, they do the like they call them the superlatives, like you know.
Of course.
Most likable, most congenial, most this or that. They voted me most likely to host a talk show.
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, they clearly made that up, but I mean, I sort of did, I guess.
interesting.
Podcast.
Wonder who they were comparing. Like, who were they?
They kind of made that category up for me. They would have some they would just sort of make up.
Sure, yeah.
The first time I actually did comedy, like technically, was in 5th grade at the 5th grade talent show. I definitely stole some Louis Anderson material.
I was going to say, whose
Minnesota
material were you
connection.
doing?
But no, I wrote a kid had got in trouble. Well, this is going to tie in. So Paul Rubens, R.I.P., just died. Pee Wee Herman.
Yes.
A kid had gotten in trouble for peeing on a school bus on a field trip. And so, like, you know, he had his dick out or whatever, just to pee on this bus. He was just trying to pee on the bus. He wasn't trying to expose himself. But he got in trouble. And I remember doing a bunch of jokes about him in relation to Pee Wee Herman, because Pee Wee Herman had gotten caught whacking off in that porno theater or whatever. And I remember getting in some trouble for making some, like, sideways jerk-off jokes about this kid named Greg in school. So I had some original material. It was mostly Greg-centric. That stuff did well at the talent show.
I bet.
Yeah, people got the reference.
That is hilarious.
So that was the first time I did stand up. I was kind of I always have a theory that a lot of comics are either only children or the youngest. Because if you're only child, you think you're more important than you are. And you also spend a lot of time with old people because you don't have any brothers and sisters. You're with your parents and your parents' friends. If you're the youngest, no one gives a shit. We're tired of children. You're here. We're done, and you're still here. And so no one pays attention to you. No one thinks you have anything worthwhile to say because everyone in the house is older than you. And the only way you can get attention is be funny. But then you actually you can't be funny. Like, if you're in 5th grade, you can't be 5th grade funny. Like, my brother is the next youngest to me. He's 3 years older than me. Everybody else is all the way up to 10 years older than me. So I went from being an only child for a while, and then my mom got remarried, and then I quickly became the youngest. So I kind of had both ingredients. I kind of had, like, I deserve attention, but then also no one gives a shit about anything I have to say. So you got to be funny. And you have to be funny in a way that's going to make your older brother and your older sisters laugh if you're trying to, like, have anybody pay attention to you.
Yes.
And also my brother's super funny. So my brother and I would just we would just crack up I don't know. We just goof around a lot. We kind of doing bits basically before we knew that's what we were doing.
What does he do for a living?
He works in the healthcare system. He works for he manages like nursing homes and stuff.
So he's the funny nursing home manager.
He's really funny. Yeah. I mean, most people, if you just hung out, would be like, "Oh, he's the funny one." My brother's way more fun to hang out with than I am.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, I don't think he has any interest in doing stand-up.
Is there one basic thing in common with everyone who's done the contest? I guess maybe you were kind of saying that just now. Maybe it's the birth order or the somebody that needs attention. Is there one thing you think everybody has in common?
I mean, probably to some degree wanting attention or validation. But the funny thing, even that is on a scale because there's people who sign up thinking like, well, I absolutely deserve this validation. I can't believe everyone's going to love me so much. And then there's other people who are like, I hate myself. I'm a piece of shit. If I can get like a couple people to chuckle, maybe I'll feel a little less like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's a pretty broad spectrum from the same thing. I don't think I was too far on either side. I was a writer. I like jokes. And I was a writer. It's the only job I've ever had, really, other than stand-up. And so to me, it was. I mean, I was wrong in a way because it's performance and there's a whole business side of it. But to me, it was like, well, I'm just delivering a different form of writing. So to me, it was always just another way of writing. But like, I'm going to say my writing instead of put it in a newspaper and put it in a sketch.
Sure, that makes sense. Each night there are prizes that people get, right? Like, of course, if you win the whole thing, it's $1,000.
Yeah, and some of the second, third, fourth place prizes ain't bad.
It's the prestige of winning, and then, as you're saying, some of the runner-up prizes aren't that bad either.
Ooh.
So you made it to the finals of your year.
Yeah.
What? I think I heard you say you got
I got fourth.
Fourth
Yep, I
place.
was fourth. John Conroy won, who I interviewed on the podcast. God, John Conroy deserved to win. Still one of the funniest guys. John is doing this great new thing. Those comedians are putting up these bullshit crowd work clips, and it's just ruining comedy. And John refuses to do crowd work and do clips, so he just goes into a swimming pool and videotapes himself. He's like, put a picture of your shirt in the comments, and I'll do crowd work from the pool. He's just like sassing people on Instagram. He's so funny. So he won.
That's wonderful.
He was the front runner. He won. Gabe Noah got second. Zach Coulter got third. I was very frustrated about that because I had actually beaten Zach in the semifinals rounds.
You had that in confidence, probably. Like, well, I got him.
I was like, look, I already beat that guy once. But then Zach got third. I was a little surprised when I got third or fourth because I was like, well, I thought I could at least get third. But I don't remember what Zach's prize was, but it wasn't as good as mine. Mine was 4 club seats to a Wild game with like the parking pass and everything.
Hey, there you go.
Oh, club seats are nice.
Yes.
So I was real happy with the prize.
Well, you got some several $100 value right there.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, well, I'm glad I got fourth for the tickets in that regard. I'd rather gotten first and no money just to win, just to bragging rights.
So all this time has passed since that happened, and you got fourth instead of first, which is what you put all this work for and stayed amateur to do. What could you have done differently to win?
Oh, I don't think anything.
Nothing.
I wasn't as funny as John.
Just
I didn't have nearly the stage presence of Gabe. Zach had great stage presence. I mean, I'm lucky Brandy didn't beat me. To be honest, I worked really hard. I did. I went out 5 nights a week minimum. I did at least 100, over 100 sets. Many nights of just watching. I wrote all the time. I never, when I was done and I got fourth, I was like, well, I wish I'd have done better, but I was like, wow, I did my best. And also, it's just such a process of like, I knew then, like, the contest was sort of symbolic for me about just getting hired here. And I knew I needed to be way funnier to get hired here. I needed way more material. 3 minutes is not going to get you hired. 15 really good minutes gets you hired.
Good point.
So it wasn't like I was like, it was just like a mile marker, like a post along the way. So I was like, okay, well, moving on to the next step.
Something that I've learned that I think is really interesting is this: you can enter this contest. There's no entry fee.
Exactly.
Some people that actually have to pay to do a contest, including comedy contests.
Yeah, and I don't like that.
Right?
I don't like paid contests at all. Paid festivals are annoying. You don't pay to perform; you pay to be considered. It's very annoying. However, having my friend Bob Edwards runs the 10,000 Laughs Comedy Festival here in town, which is a great festival. You kind of have to because literally everyone in the world would send you a submission tape.
Sure. And
you kind of have to pay people to watch. I mean, those submission tapes, it takes a long time to go through 305-minute submission tapes. I mean, that's a crazy amount.
Yeah, it's a full-time job.
So that is one of those things where it's like, okay, most festivals you have that, or they're invite only, in which case, you'll be asked to submit if someone decides.
Yeah.
But I like a free contest. I don't like the World Series of Comedy, total scam. The World Series of Comedy is the worst. That's a pure scam. I was running an open mic, and they offered me. It's basically a contest where you win feature work, but they charge you at like every level to keep participating, and then you have to like fly yourself to Vegas. And they offered me this great deal. They go, hey, we can make your open mic, which was a Tuesday night open mic, which was always free. Like, you can make your open mic a World Series of Comedy satellite festival event. All you have to do is send us $350, but then you can charge tickets to the comics, and you can make money. And I'm like, so a pyramid scheme. And then the guy's like, no, it's not a pyramid scheme. And so then I sent him the dictionary definition of a pyramid scheme, and then he didn't like that. So then I posted our email exchanges on Twitter about it being a pyramid scheme. He really didn't like that. So I'm all about flaming those scumbags. I got an email from that World Series asshole who's offering now. This is even better. An online comedy class to teach you. First off, comedy classes, bogus. The end. Don't take a comedy class. You learn for free on the job. Like, you learn from people. If you don't suck, they'll tell you. But I was like, this guy's not even a comic. This guy literally just went from bilking comics one way to bilking comics another way. I was like, this guy should teach like how to screw people, like how to create your own MLM. That should be his thing. So yeah, that's what the Acme contest is. I like it because there's really no reason not to do it if you're a new comic.
Yes, you
There's
really don't
no
have much to lose.
You have literally nothing to lose, and in fact, only things to gain. You get a bunch of free tickets to a show. You get to do a true show. I mean, the open mic here is great. I'm doing it tonight. I love it, but it's different energy when it's a paid show, and sometimes it's like a Friday night late show. It's like a packed show.
I think it's interesting. When I would come to the show, I've been coming to shows here for years, and you see in the past, it would be like, all right, now we're gonna take a little break here in the contest. We're gonna do a little contest we run in the summer, and then they start calling out 1, 2, 3, and they would come from backstage.
Yeah,
I've noticed like this summer they're coming from their seats in the audience.
Yeah, well, that started during COVID.
It did
because they were trying to keep the people from the green room. They didn't want a bunch of people breathing in there, and they didn't want to put that on the headliners. But then I know after that they were just like, wow, a lot less crazy stuff is happening. Because like when I was back there one time, like a guy ate my ribs while I was on stage. Like I just like I did my MC set and I walked back out and my ribs were just like mostly gone. And this guy's like sucking barbecue fingers off his sauce. And I was like, did you just eat my rib dinner? And the guy's like, I thought they were for the green room. He's like, oh, there's just a plate of ribs in the green room that we can all grab.
Yeah,
and then Brandy Brown famously grabbed her beer and went to take a drink of it, and somebody had spit their snooze packet into her beer.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the worst one. So like, and then a guy whose name I won't mention because he's sobered up and he's a great guy and he turned into a really good comic. But before he stopped drinking, he did the contest for his first time. It's kind of how he got into comedy, and he was one of the top 5 drunkest human beings I've ever seen. Like we had to like help him, like just get around. So having people come to their seats minimizes the sort of interaction factor in the green room.
Yeah, and I mean, I always thought like there's a headliner back there who really put in their dues to have their position here at Acme this week, and then you got like Joe, first day, maybe never been on a stage, is back there like in their presence,
asking like, weird questions. Sometimes
that's gotta be uncomfortable for everybody involved.
It was cool to me because I remember sitting back in the green room with Paul Gilmartin. My first round, I think Chris Porter was my next round. I forget who the finalist was, but I got to hang out with. I think it might have been Tim actually. So I remember thinking it was amazing to get to hang out in the Acme green room and look at the signatures on the walls. And I asked Paul Gilmartin a couple of dumb questions, and he was really nice about it.
That's good.
So That's good. A lot of the headliners are really generous with the new people, but it can be a lot. So I think that coming from the audience is better.
You've been asking everybody if they have some advice for people in the contest, and I took some notes here. Like Lisa Evanson, who won a few years ago, her advice was take the time to do it right.
Yeah, write your stuff down. Prepare for sure.
Have fun.
Yeah,
seems simple.
I mean, that's the trick of all stand-up, which is probably some of the advice that I would always give to people is that you should definitely do any time you have a chance to do a contest or a festival or. If it's free or if it doesn't cost too much, if you're able to do it, you should do it because you need practice doing high pressure sets. You first when you first start off, it's like every set's terrifying, and then I've done this a couple 300 times and it's not so scary and I know how it feels. But then you go like, oh, now there's an important person in the room, or there's an audition going on for whatever. They're bringing back Last Comic or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you try. If you try to be your best, ironically, it's not like in sports where like I'll just try harder and maybe I'll run a little faster. You'll actually be worse. You will go faster in the wrong way. You'll tense up.
Yeah.
You actually have to learn how to like relax yourself and treat a really important set like any other set. It's kind of counterintuitive. You think like. Now you prepare for it, you have your best jokes ready, but if you go up there and be like, I'm going to do the most high energy version and I'm going to, like, it's not going to come off right.
Yeah.
And so doing a contest and any kind of simulation, or it's not really a simulation, anytime you can just put yourself in a high pressure situation, do it. You'll learn how, and so eventually you'll get an opportunity that you're ready for, and you'll be ready. You'll be loose. So now when I do festivals, I don't like. I just go, I'm doing another set. It's an important set. Go do a set.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Don't go over your time, right?
That's the most important thing in the contest because we always tell people and they never listen. But it's like, hey, man, if you go 1 second over even, your points get cut in half. Just statistically, there's no way to win with your points cut in half.
Yeah.
There's not even a way to get out of the. You'll never get out of whatever round you're in. Certainly won't win, because the winner by the time of the finals, it's like, I forget, there's like 10 categories or maybe 5 categories of 10 points. It's all like 10-9-8, 10-9-8. The winner always is mostly over in that range.
Yeah.
It's decided by a few points. If you get 5s at best, you're done.
Right. Tim Harmson had some interesting advice. He was saying, don't waste your time coming out here doing the, hey, what do you think of that? Hey, let's keep it going.
Yeah.
You have 3 minutes. Come out here and take advantage of every second.
Absolutely.
Come out and hit him with a joke.
Yeah.
Maybe your best joke.
Yes.
Right?
That's a good advice for comedy in general. Like, if you're the headliner and you want to come out and reset the energy a little bit, that's fine. But if you're at an open mic, unless you're the only time I say keep it going for whoever was the last person is if I'm about to say some mean shit about them, which I love to do. I think it's fun when comics burn each other. You riff off their joke or whatever. But so I'll always to kind of remind them that that's who I'm talking about. Hey, keep it going for Nate Abshire. Like, boy, that last joke was a piece of shit or whatever. I'm gonna why would I use Nate as an example? But yeah, other than that, no, come up and do your thing. Like, this is your time. And when you have 3 minutes, don't waste 20 seconds of it. That's a lot.
Quick side note here: the episode that you did with Nate was top notch. Obviously, you two have such an interesting relationship, friendship, rivalry. It's so good and so entertaining. I've enjoyed it for as long as I've known you two, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
15 years we've known each other. It seems impossible, but he's truly one of my favorite people on the whole planet.
Oh,
and one of the funniest comics, like one of the funniest guys to hang out with, and like a super smart guy. But just on stage, like he keeps me writing jokes because I go to see him and I'm like, where did he get this new 30? This is great. Shit, I have to write a new 30.
That's so cool. So I wanted to mention before we wrap it up here, Mary Mac's advice was maybe take 12 years before you do a rape joke.
Yeah. That's fair. Me personally, I've chosen just not to do any of those.
Okay.
But yeah,
15 isn't long enough for you.
Yeah, it's kind of the classic thing when you're new. You first off, you're so aggressive. You want to I'm gonna show what I can do, and so you pick some maybe like high difficulty topics. But I also think new people have a thing where the scariest thing is getting no reaction. Right? You go up there and you start talking, and everyone crosses their arms. Well, if you say a bunch of real shocking stuff, people are gonna react. They're gonna make noise. But then also, some people just laugh when they get nervous. It's not a real laugh. It's not a true. It's almost the opposite of. It's like blue balls laughter. It's not the release of a real laugh. It's it's actually the tension.
Yes.
But from a new comic's perspective, it's like, oh, there's noise. I said something and they made noise. Some chuckles. It was like, it was chuckle like, oh God, where's he going with this? So I think new comics are so scared of the silence that they default to shock because it gets attention. I think if they had, I did the same thing, I should point out. Once you just have like a good joke and people laugh really hard, you're like, that was qualitatively different.
That is another thing that stood out to me that's very fascinating. That people have done this contest, 10, 12, 8, 15 years ago, and some like Brandy said she still has like a killer joke that she could use from way back then.
I think, my memory's so fuzzy now, I'm fairly certain I do 2 jokes from my contest set still.
Amazing.
They were just really clean. I wrote a lot more clean stuff early on, and when I was new, and so, man, I don't write enough clean jokes to get rid of clean jokes. So especially my corporate set. Like if you come see me in August when I'm headlining, I'm not doing any of that stuff. But if you come see my corporate set, my world status petting zoo joke, which I did on Ferguson.
Yes,
and
such a good one.
And the wouldn't it be romantic if we died together little one-liner. Yes. I'm almost positive I did both of those in the contest.
Wow.
I know I did the petting zoo one. And the funeral home joke that I did on Ferguson was from my contest set. But then I got Ferguson like 4 years in, so... at that point, it wasn't really that old a joke. It was my oldest joke that I still did.
Sure.
But, I didn't have much of a repertoire.
So who's going to win the contest this year?
Man, I have no idea. I have a couple of people I've got my eye on, but I will say it very rarely, for whatever reason, do the people that I think like, they're going to do great. It's usually not the person who wins. Last year I thought Lahiru was going to win, and he came really close. But there was another guy that I was sure was going to win. I don't even know if he made the semis. He's a very funny guy.
Yeah.
So 3 minutes is such a crapshoot because somebody can come out of nowhere, and if they have an interesting vibe and they've put together like one good true bit, 3 minutes you can do like a bit. If you want to do it that way, or you can do a bunch of one-liners. If they got an interesting story that they can tell for 3 minutes and a good vibe, like they can make the finals.
Yeah, it's so fun. I've been lucky enough to be asked to be a judge for. I mean, since I've been doing this podcast, maybe even a year or two before that.
Well, we judged together how many times?
I mean, I've done it
years in a row. Yeah,
12, 13, 14
yeah,
times
I've
in a row,
judge
probably.
Yeah, I don't know if I've done every one of them. I missed a couple, I think, during COVID, and one year I was just out, somewhere working.
But I'm not I'm not part of the scene. So
Yeah.
I don't come to open mic, so I'm seeing most of these people.
Oh, sure.
For the first time.
Yeah.
Which is was a kind of a different perspective from you and few of the other people, like the professional comedians that get asked to be judges. But I always bring my wife, and her looking over at my sheet and judging me and my judging, like. I have yet to change one with her disapproving look, but I feel it every time when she likes somebody a little bit more than me or a little bit less. I'm just like,
See,
I'm the judge.
You've got integrity as a judge. You can't be bribed. You're no Sam Alito of comedy,
But it does lead to some really fun talks between the two of us on the way home.
Yeah.
Here's what I liked about that one. I can't believe that one didn't win. And
yeah, there's usually I remember the year. I don't even remember who won, but Danielle Threlo was second, and there was a heated discussion among the judges. No one was angry, but it was a really close contest, and people I was like, how did Danielle not win? And then with Andy and Lahiru, everybody was getting together and being like, how did you score it? That was really close, right? And and everybody scored it super close.
Yeah,
they were both great. I'd never seen Andy before. I'd heard he was funny, but if I didn't know it or whatever, and I was like, dang, that guy's funny.
And now you see him all the time.
Andy and Lahiro, I see him pretty much every week.
That's so cool.
They're both fantastic comics.
And as you said, some people have won and disappeared.
Oh, sure. I mean, some people do it. Like, if it was a bucket list thing, it was like, yeah, I did it. I mean, they're if you actually want to do comedy at any, even as a hobbyist, it's a pretty big time commitment.
Sure.
Because you got to write and you got to go hang out and all this. So a lot of people are like, no, I'm not interested in that. I got a family, I got a job or whatever. But I did it. They'll come back if they get up in the next round.
Yeah.
And then they vanish into thin air.
So what is the best advice you could give these people that are done this contest? That are doing that are entered in the contest, they have it coming up. What is the best advice you can give them?
Well, I mean, aside from all the great advice there,
Yes.
I kind of almost a riff on what Lisa said, which is if you're really trying to win, really work hard, especially the last couple of months. If you're, when your round's coming up, go out to a ton of open mics. Just practice. If you think you have a really good 3 minutes and you win your prelim round, that doesn't have to be the set you do in the finals or in the semifinals. Not if you write better jokes between now and then. Now, the only way to find out that the jokes are better is to go to more mics and do them. But I remember I did write one new joke between my prelim and my semis. And I remember when I did it being it was getting a real big reaction. And I remember being like, oh, this is going in the 3. I'm bumping out the worst thing and I'm bringing this in. So, you can keep getting better right up until the day. Now, if your best set happens to be the same thing, do that, because it's different judges. We haven't seen it,
right?
But if you can keep getting better, and then also, I heard some of the best comedy advice I've ever heard. I thought it was such an interesting thing from Lily Meyer, a local comic here. She's very funny. But we were just talking in a green room somewhere just about comedy and stuff we wish we'd known, stuff we wish people had said to us. And Lily said the smartest thing. She said, when you start comedy, she said, don't be friends with anybody who really wants to be friends with you right away. She's like, because those people are probably crazy and they're probably hangers-on and they probably are. The reason that they're gravitating toward you, random stranger, with such intensity is they need help. Be it maybe psychological help, maybe they need a friend, right? And so both the craziest people and the scummiest people will try to prey on open micers, especially girls. Oh man, when a woman starts comedy, all the worst comics see the new girl come in and they all have the same thought, which is, I think I can date her if she doesn't find out I'm the least funny person. Like right now, she doesn't know that I'm terrible. She doesn't know who else is funny. So if I can just get in there, and so they will just, it doesn't happen as bad as it used to. They will just swarm around these women. I remember one time at Acme, Chris Maddock, one of the great comics from Minneapolis.
Yes.
Maddock was up there hosting, and he looks in the back, and he's running the show, and he sees a new girl, and he sees a ring of terrible open micers around her, and he just goes off, and he's like, "Hey, you assholes!" He's like, "Leave her alone." He's just like in the middle of his set, and he's like, "You know, if you were funny, you could fuck an audience member. Have you ever thought about trying to be funny sometime?" And he just goes off on and they all shamefacedly move away from this girl who looked deeply relieved. But it's not just a predatory thing. It's also like, yeah, the people who want to be your friends super bad are like, there's something up with them. Like if you just chill, if you just show up and just like keep your head down, you don't got to be anybody's best friend. Just be polite, tip the bartender, tip the wait staff, do your time, do your set, try hard, keep coming back. In not very long, in just a couple of months, people will be like, "Hey, I recognize you from around." And those people, they actually, you want to be friends with those people. They're like they waited, they gauged that you weren't mad, you know, they saw that you, because a lot of it that new comics think like, why is everybody not being friends to me? It's like, it's you know, in Nam they call it fucking new guy. There's a book, FNG, I think it's Philip Caputo, fucking new guy. He's gonna die. Like statistically, like in Vietnam, like you died in the first 2 weeks. You know, like if you were gonna go, it was gonna be at the beginning when you didn't know how shit went. And my old creative writing teacher, Larry Heineman, amazing writer, was a Nam vet, and he would always talk about. He's like, don't be nice to the fucking new guy. He's probably not gonna be here in 2 weeks. And that's a real. There's that same lesser intensity attitude in comedy because so many people show up and they talk a big game and then they realize it's hard and they leave. And so there's this little background of like people who come in and out and they're gone. And so when you've been doing it for 10 years, you kind of just like, if you're like, I'll wait 6 months, and if they're still around, well, I'll be friends with them. And it's actually kind of a mitzvah that they don't pay attention to you because you're almost exclusively terrible in the first 6 months. You're awful. You wouldn't I mean, I'm so glad that most people don't remember almost any of the stuff that I did and that none of it's on video.
Right.
You know, so it's like when people sometimes really new comics would ask me, especially when I ran my open mic, they'd be like, "What'd you think of my set?" I'm like, "I didn't really watch." And they'd be like, "Oh." I'm like, No. It's fine. It's good. I'm just letting you get some reps. I'm going to watch one day. You know, but you don't want me to get locked into, like you said, I saw that guy do 3 really awful rape jokes and they were terrible. And then in my mind, he's like rape joke guy. And then like, but maybe 6 months from now, the guy goes, maybe I should not do that anymore. So you can kind of get a bad rep early. So it's, just like take your time easing in, work really hard. And, but I think Lily's advice about just chill and don't be friends with anybody too fast. I thought that was blew my mind.
That nails it.
Yeah.
As you're saying that, I had a vision of when I had a job in radio, and there was, hey, come meet the new salesperson. I'd be like, why? Because in 2 months, they're going to work down the street. They won't be here. Yeah. There was so much turnover. And I was just like, I'm done meeting people. If they're here in 6 months when we have a holiday party, I'll sit and have a beer with them. But they're not going to be here. Yeah, you just end up doing a lot of small talk. And new comics always want to talk about comedy. But, like, you know, of course they do. But, like, you know, it's pretty base level. Because, you know, it's what are the chances you're going to have insights on comedy? You've done it 7 times, and you're talking to Tim Harmston, who's done it for 20 years, you know? So it's like, I'll talk to Tim about comedy. Yeah. I'll wait for the new people to percolate. But a lot of funny new people, a lot of great young comics in Minneapolis right now, really pushing people, I think, you know, he's like, you got to keep getting funnier because these new kids are getting funnier all the time. Love that. And they've got they're working hard. They're smart material. I think there's I don't know, there's all this fraught thing in comedy, you know, the whole woke, cancel culture, all this bullshit. They're mostly fake definitions. What I see with the new comics is people taking some real chances and doing interesting stuff, but also doing it in a way that's smart and thoughtful. So they're not shying away from topics, but they're also not just walking up and like, so my Chinese neighbor did a thing the other day. You know, they're not just like whoa, hey, easy there. You know, I don't see people getting soft. I see people being sharp in a thoughtful way, which like. Isn't that better? I think that's better. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go with better. Bring it. I want that. Yeah. Yes, be sharp. I love it.
So, I mean, whoever you see in the finals this year, I expect the people that I see in the semis, there'll be a few people that I keep seeing around. And, based on, Lahiru and Aiden McCluskey and Andy Duong and, who knows who else, I'll be seeing some of those people around, and they'll be pretty darn good pretty fast.
Love it. So you and I will probably be chatting again your week, your headlining week, when they have the semifinals.
Yes.
And that week, once again, is?
So the last 2 days of August, first 2 days of September.
Okay.
So it's like August. Is there 31st of August? I think there is. 30, 31st, and I know it's the 1st and 2nd of September is the weekend. So Wednesday to Saturday, I'm trying to, I recorded my album last time I was here.
Yes.
So I'll be selling the album.
Yes.
And then hopefully doing just a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't on the album. That's been my goal all year, was to have a bunch of new stuff for this week.
Mention the name of that album. It's out now.
Oh, yeah. All the New Ugly People. You can buy it on, Amazon and iTunes and all the places you can buy an album.
Yeah. I've listened to it. It's streaming somewhere. Of course, you want me to buy a copy,
Of
right?
course. Ideally, you would buy it. I believe it is also
Yes.
streaming places, which I get
Yes.
like a penny for or whatever. And then hopefully it'll be on SiriusXM. I know it's been submitted. I haven't heard back. And
Spotify just told me they're raising their prices $1. Does that mean you're going to get another half penny?
yeah, I'll get another fragment of a penny.
Huh?
But yeah, and I'll have hard copies here, hopefully, to sell as well. So if people want to buy an old-fashioned CD. Some people still like buying the CD. I don't even know if they... I mean, you could just put it in and burn it, but people, I can download it or buy a CD. They want the CD.
Let me give you a quick thing about what people are calling antiquated, things like that. DVD. Last night, you brought it up. Paul Rubens died. We're putting a date on this, but that's okay. I, of course, wanted to watch Pee-wee's Big Adventure last night.
Sure.
It's not streaming anywhere for free.
Yeah?
I do have a copy on DVD. I went and found it. Had to go find a VCR downstairs. Brought that up to the living room. Plugged that in. Start playing the movie, and the audio was effed up, and it was only playing the music tracks.
Oh, weird.
No voice.
Weird.
Yes.
You didn't even know what the secret word was.
The secret word was I needed a Blu-ray. Apparently, I don't know.
I'm such a physical media. I mean, I'm an old movie guy. I love old movies. I not only still have a DVD player that I used. I watched And Justice for All, the '79 Al Pacino movie, from the library 2 nights ago. But I still subscribe to Netflix discs.
No, you don't.
I've
heard you say this, but not anymore.
They are stopping the service at the end of this month. August 30th is the last day, and I'm going down with the ship. I've got 3 seconds before the explosion, Japanese action movie, and then Roll Bounce, a roller skating movie at the house right now, and I'll send those back in. Get some more movies.
They need to release how many people are still doing that, like the numbers. It's you and how many more people?
I don't know, but I was like, what? I'm going down with the ship. I'm not. I'm keeping my last 2 discs.
I love it.
I'm missing a Seinfeld disc from season 5, so I think I'm gonna get that from Netflix and just put that in my DVD so I can replace that. They won't miss it.
I love it. For the final thing here. I had a really good time going back and watching a lot of the YouTube videos that you did of this podcast. I encourage people to go back and watch them.
I do too.
They're all out there. They're really, really interesting. They're really
yeah,
good.
people. There's such a panoply of people. And you get Aiden McCluskey, who's like this phenom young kid who's also kind of he's figuring it out. And then you get John Conroy, who's got incredible, great, salty details about festivals being scams. That's what John wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
John's a big anti-scammer. Me and Nate fencing a little bit.
So good.
So there's some fun ones.
There you go. Thank you, Bryan.
Thank you.